Many people feel exhausted, but not because life is unusually hard. They are tired because they are constantly resisting what is happening, trying to control outcomes, trying to manage other people's behavior, trying to force timing, emotions, and certainty in an uncertain world. This quiet struggle creates a constant inner tension. Even when nothing dramatic is happening, the mind is busy pushing, correcting, worrying, and preparing for what might go wrong next. In Buddhist wisdom, suffering does not grow from reality itself. It grows from resistance to reality. When the mind fights what is already here, peace becomes impossible. The body tightens, the breath shortens, the heart hardens. You may not be tired of life. You may be tired of fighting it. And the moment resistance softens, even slightly, something unexpected appears. Space. And in that space, peace begins to become possible. The desire to control is deeply human. It does not come from arrogance. It comes from fear. The mind believes that control equals safety. If I can predict what will happen, manage outcomes, and keep things the way I prefer, then I won't suffer. Or at least, I will suffer less. So the mind plans. It analyzes. It worries. It rehearses conversations that haven't happened yet. It tries to stay one step ahead of life. But Buddhism points out a painful truth. We live in an impermanent world. Everything changes. Circumstances shift. People evolve. Bodies age. Emotions rise and fall. In such a world, control is an illusion. The more we cling to certainty, the more anxious we become. Because deep down, we know we cannot guarantee outcomes. And when reality refuses to follow our expectations, frustration appears. This is how attachment to control creates suffering. The Buddha taught that peace does not come from securing life. It comes from understanding its changing nature. When we accept impermanence, the grip of control begins to loosen. The more we try to control life, the more life seems to control us. And the more we learn to release control, the lighter the mind becomes. Many people misunderstand acceptance. They hear the word and imagine passivity, weakness, or resignation, as if accepting something means you no longer care or that you stop trying to improve your life. But this is not what the Buddha taught. Acceptance does not mean approving of what is happening. It means seeing clearly what is happening. When the mind refuses to accept reality, it enters conflict. It argues with the present moment. It says, this shouldn't be happening, or it must be different. And that inner struggle becomes suffering. Wisdom in Buddhist teaching begins with acceptance of what is. Not because reality is always pleasant, but because clarity is impossible without honesty. You cannot respond wisely to something you are denying. Acceptance removes inner conflict. It allows the mind to stop fighting facts. From this place, action becomes clearer. You may still choose to change what can be changed. You may still act, speak, or set boundaries. But you do so without the tension of resistance. Acceptance is not surrender to life. It is surrender to reality. And when reality is no longer an enemy, the mind becomes steady. From steadiness, true change becomes possible, quietly, patiently, without force. Much of our stress comes from confusing what is within our control with what is not. You cannot control other people's choices. You cannot control outcomes. You cannot control timing, and you cannot control impermanence. Trying to manage these things only creates frustration. But Buddhism does not teach helplessness. It teaches discernment. There are things you can control. You can control your intention. You can control how you respond. You can control the effort you bring to each moment. You can control whether you meet experience with awareness or resistance. The Buddha called this right effort, acting with care, clarity and presence without clinging to results. You do what is within reach, and you release what is not. This balance is where inner freedom begins. When effort is applied without acceptance, it becomes tension. When acceptance exists without effort, it becomes stagnation. Peace grows when effort meets acceptance. You act where you can. You release where you cannot. And in that balance, the mind stops struggling against life and starts moving with it, calmly, wisely, and with far less suffering. Pain is a natural part of life. Loss happens. Disappointment arises. Bodies get tired. Plans fall apart. The Buddha never promised a life without pain. What he taught was something more practical. Pain is unavoidable, but suffering is optional. Suffering is created when the mind resists pain. When something difficult happens, the first experience is the pain itself. But then the mind adds a second layer. This shouldn't be happening. Why me? I can't accept this. That inner struggle becomes heavier than the original pain. This is what the Buddha described as the second arrow. The first arrow is the pain of life. The second arrow is the suffering we add through resistance. Imagine being caught in a river. When you fight the current, you exhaust yourself. Panic grows. Fear tightens the body. But when you stop fighting and allow yourself to float, the water still moves, but you are no longer drowning. Resistance doubles the burden. Acceptance lightens it. When reality is met without inner argument, pain is still felt, but it does not overwhelm. The heart softens, the breath returns, and suffering loses much of its power. Many people fear letting go because they believe it means giving up, as if releasing control means becoming passive, careless, or weak. But letting go in Buddhism does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means releasing attachment. You still act, you still make decisions, you still take responsibility for what is within reach. The difference is that action no longer comes from tension. When the mind is attached to outcomes, every step feels heavy. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of being wrong all interfere. Action becomes rushed or rigid, and even when things go well, peace is fragile. Non-attachment allows wiser action. When you let go of the need to control results, your attention returns to the present moment. You listen more carefully. You respond more appropriately. You conserve energy instead of wasting it on worry. Calm action is not slow or weak. It is efficient. A tense mind reacts. A calm mind responds. The Buddha taught that freedom does not come from withdrawing from life. It comes from engaging with life without clinging. When attachment is released, action becomes clearer, more grounded, and more effective, because it is no longer driven by fear. Letting go does not stop movement. It allows movement without suffering. Acceptance does not begin in the mind. It begins in the body. When something feels wrong, the body reacts first. The shoulders tighten, the chest contracts, the breath becomes shallow. This is resistance. The first step is simply to notice it. Pause and bring attention to where resistance lives in the body. Do not judge it. Do not try to relax it. Just feel it. Next, gently name what is outside your control. Another person's reaction, an outcome that hasn't arrived yet, the timing of change. There is relief in honesty. Then allow the feeling to be present without fixing it. You do not need to make it go away. You do not need to understand it. Stay with the sensation as it moves and changes. Most feelings soften when they are no longer resisted. Finally, return your attention to what is within reach. One small action, one calm response, one breath taken with awareness. This is how acceptance is practiced, not as an idea, not as a decision, but as an inner movement away from resistance and toward clarity. And each time this movement happens, peace grows quietly, without force. When resistance begins to fall away, life does not suddenly become easy, but it becomes lighter. There is less inner conflict, less arguing with reality, less energy wasted on wishing things were different. The mind no longer feels like a battlefield. With less resistance, energy returns, clarity sharpens, compassion grows. You begin to see that much of your exhaustion came not from life itself, but from fighting it. And when the fight ends, even partially, the heart softens. Difficult situations still arise. Loss still happens. Uncertainty still exists. But without inner war, these experiences no longer overwhelm in the same way. They are met with steadiness instead of panic, with understanding instead of blame. The Buddha taught that peace is not the absence of difficulty. It is the absence of inner war. When you stop resisting life, you stop taking everything personally. You respond instead of react. You act without panic. You rest more deeply, even in the middle of challenge. This is not indifference, it is wisdom. And from this place, life begins to feel workable again. Not because it has changed, but because you have stopped fighting what already is. You don't need life to change in order to find peace. You need to change how you meet life. Peace is not something that arrives when conditions are perfect. It becomes available when resistance softens. The Buddha taught that freedom begins the moment we stop arguing with reality. When we allow life to be as it is, without inner struggle, the heart opens and the mind settles. Take a moment to notice where you are still fighting what cannot be controlled. Not to judge it, but to see it clearly. And if these reflections resonate with you, consider subscribing for more Buddhist wisdom on living with clarity and calm. There is more to explore about awareness, acceptance, and a gentler way of living. When you stop fighting what cannot be controlled, peace quietly arrives.